Guys, welcome to Box, the football talk show powered by Sportology TV. My name's Ouney. This is my co-host Ali Drew. This week, we've got another huge pair of guests, but Ali's going to introduce the guests that we've got on right now. Let me just give you a quick recap on last week's show. We brought in Flex from the United stand, talking about everything to do with Manchester United, including Paul Pogba saga, Mason Greenwood being media hunted, and Rashford's great work off the pitch. But this week, Ali, who have we got in?
Yes. Well, we have two great guests. Ooh. First up, it is a presenter who you'll hear on TalkSport, and he is also the host of the podcast Football Weekly. We are delighted to be joined by Max Rushden. Max, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Who's the second exciting guest? Because
we don't say no.
I like to know where I stand in the. I'm hoping for your sake it's more exciting than me. That's all I'm saying.
He is. We've had him on before, and right. We'll tell you when we finish recording because we don't want to ruin it yet.
Right. Okay. Fine.
But we'll tell you when we finish. But we've had him on before, and he's quite a character.
But also, what's nice is if the other guest is more important and more exciting than me, it takes the pressure off me. I don't need to perform at any sort of level. I can just phone it in. So that's great.
No, you do. You need to perform.
Okay. All right.
How are things?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. I'd like to say this is where I live, right? But it isn't at all. This is where TalkSport broadcasts from, and I've just been called in at the last minute to the afternoon show. But this wouldn't be bad if I lived here. Could tell that I was still on the telly because then I'd have enough money to own a flat like this. But it's a pretty good view. But yes, I'm very well. How are you two?
I was thinking TalkSport pay you really, really well if you're still. Max, just quickly before we talk about football, talk to me about yourself. I know you've been a busy man. I know you from the days of Soccer AM, but now
the glory years,
the good old days. But talk to me about how things are changing with you. What sort of roles you're playing at the moment?
Yeah, I'm still just talking out loud and getting away with it, which is, that's the key, isn't it? So, yeah, I do the Guardian Football Weekly podcast. That's 3 days a week, Saturday, Sunday mornings here at TalkSport. Until very recently, and this is actually really quite sad, I was the voice of Gaviscon, and I've discovered in the last week or two that I'm no longer the voice of Gaviscon. So I am open to doing voiceovers for other indigestion remedies. And if you know anyone at Rennie or Pepsi-Bismol, I'm very open to offers, and I'm good value, I'm sober, and I'm punctual.
Did they not tell you hadn't got the gig anymore? Did you just have to listen?
Do you know what? Someone just messaged me because I've gone on about it so much. It's that tragic. Because do you know what? When I meet people and they say, "Oh, what do you do?" and I say, "I do this, this, and this," the thing that genuinely interests people more than anything else is that I used to be the voice of those, the cartoon firemen and the twins in the Gaviscon advert. But no, I didn't. I only found out on Twitter because someone said, "I've just seen the advert and you're not on it anymore."
Oh.
You know what?
So it's a great,
It's a great line that you put out there: sober and punctual. You should put that in your CV.
Yeah. I think it's really important. Hey, I've worked with a lot of people who are neither, so I just think it should be right up there.
Mike, let's talk football. The reason why we put you on. First of all, I want to go to Liverpool. Liverpool played Leicester yesterday. Just want to talk about the champions. Give me a sort of assessment of what the season that they're having. We know they took a battering a couple of games ago, a little while ago, against Aston Villa. They seem to be, since then, producing results and quite recently producing good results. What do you make of their sort of season so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that we all said, like, for the whole of last season, yeah, but if Van Dijk was injured, that they would fall apart. And I think I was definitely one of those people that saw Leicester going there, saw what Leicester had done to Man City and thought Liverpool play a high line, Jamie Vardy to get in behind. But I thought they were. I just thought it was such a comprehensive victory. Jota is obviously a really lovely footballer. His movement is tremendous. It was a lovely header, but he's just fitted in so well. And I think we all thought he was good at Wolves, but then perhaps we're all a bit naive. I shouldn't say we all. Some people probably weren't, but I wasn't sure how that he was this good, and he has been. I thought Curtis Jones looks like such a lovely player, doesn't he? And just might be quite nice for a young player to come into the first team who are playing well without any fans, because he's probably used to playing in games without fans. But I thought he looked really, really good. And look, they 64 unbeaten at home. If you think about the team that set that record before, 78 to 81, like to say that I wasn't alive when that record began, but I was alive when it finished. But they, that extraordinary record, and to take any record off that Liverpool side of late 70s, early 80s is a tremendous achievement. And I think the fact that they are joint top of the league, given the injuries that they've had, means that they will probably win the league.
I was going to just ask you that. Do you feel like this is where a manager gets looked at when all these injuries happen? We know with obviously the great Sir Alex, when he had injuries, he used to play players in different positions. Somehow he used to pull it off. Jurgen Klopp seems to have that effect with his players. He seems to get 110% out of every player, even players like Wijnaldum, who were doing it for Newcastle. What a big signing, but when he came to Liverpool, turned out to be a great signing. Do you feel like Jurgen Klopp's sort of just plays well with these players that he's got, great player management, and just gets them working 100%?
I think so. I think recruitment is a real art, right? And you can get it right and you can get it wrong. And it's being able to spot that someone like Wijnaldum, or to, I say Jota was probably a more high-profile signing anyway, but you see those players, or even Van Dijk or Alisson or whatever, you see these players, you obviously have to spend a lot of money on them, but you can see what they can do if they're surrounded by better players. There's no doubt that he is the best manager in the world at the moment, I'd say. And also he just seems like a really nice bloke. And, that doesn't really matter in a footballing terms, but it matters to me. And so I like to see nice people do well.
Talking of another team, Man United, they've had a bit of a sort of up and down season. They've had, they perform great, and then the next game it will be terrible. It's safe to say terrible. And they beat West Brom at the weekend. What is your view on sort of how Man United can do this season?
It's an impossible question to answer. I mean, they're just so inconsistent, aren't they? And I think I am guilty, and I think a lot of people in this industry are guilty of sort of setting up narratives and then sort of believing them and then changing them so quickly week to week. So, they went to PSG and they won. Then they hammered Leipzig, didn't they? And you thought, well, look, Solskjaer can get a tune out of these players. And there is a definite truth that if teams come onto them, they have the ability to score goals on the counter-attack. If teams sit in, they've lost at home to they lost to Palace, that they were lucky against West Brom, weren't they? And I think that must be really frustrating for Manchester United fans, not being able to break teams down. But it's funny, as they came out of lockdown, like at the end of last season, you thought, actually, they seem to have got it working. Fernandes has made such an impact on this team. But look, I had to predict my top 6 last week and I didn't have them in it. And nothing that happened at the weekend would make me change that. It's obviously very early. They've got the players to get on a run. But, it isn't working. I'm looking forward to seeing Cavani play because he's such a wonderful footballer. And I think he'll bring, whoever's out wide into the game well. But it's only going to be inconsistent, I think, for them.
Do you think that, because I think they're 10th in the table at the moment, do you think that Ollie is the right manager to get them, higher? Do you think that it's due to him, that he can do anything to sort of help their change of performance?
Look, it's been talked about a lot, hasn't it? I sort of suspect, had Sheringham got more on that header in 99 and the ball had gone straight in and Solskjaer hadn't touched it, would he be the Manchester United manager? And there's a chance that he wouldn't. And if you look at his CV compared to the other managers of the biggest clubs in England, then he the only reason he's there is because of his Man United status. The only reason Lampard's at Chelsea is the same reason. It doesn't mean it won't work. I think he still has a lot to prove. And I think, the debate is about Pochettino, and Pochettino is without a club, and he certainly has more experience. You could get a more successful manager, or a manager with a better track record. There is no doubt about that. It doesn't mean it won't work, but you sort of wonder how much emotion should come into those kind of decisions at a club of that stature. I would love him to prove everybody wrong, and he's got an interesting backstory, and he's not just a sort of nice guy with no backbone, but tactically at the absolute highest level, it's really not easy. You need a lot of luck as well. But the short answer to your question is probably not. But I'm too nice to call for managers' heads. I let other people do that kind of thing.
Again, this weekend, it was some controversial VAR decisions. Talking about the United game, West Brom had a decision that the referee then got called for VAR. It wasn't something that was really clear, a clear error, but the referee went there and overturned the decision. Now, this whole thing, I was watching BT Sport, Rio Ferdinand saying one thing, Paul Scholes saying yes, no, it wasn't a penalty. Rio Ferdinand saying yes, it was. They're having an argument with each other. So it shows that there was no clear way of looking at it. So the referee's decision at that time should have stood that he gave the penalty, then he overturned it. What do you make of this sort of grey area? We don't still know what's happening with VAR. There's these rules that have come up, but they're not being followed. So everyone just doesn't know what's happening with it.
I couldn't believe he overturned that decision. It cracked into his shin. I think he might get the ball, but I'm still not convinced. I think what's really interesting about this is, I was tweeting about it at the time, and a lot of Manchester United fans, who I don't think are totally irrational, were like, Fernandes has nutmegged him. And I think what it shows is actually it's much deeper. It's sort of psychological. You see what you want to see, right? And that is beyond football. That is sort of how you're brought up. I started making loose politics to how divided the United States is politically. Like, people can see the same thing and completely in their heart and mind believe completely different things. I've watched that about 1 million times. I can't see how it isn't a penalty. But there'll be Manchester United fans watching this thinking I'm mad for thinking that. And I don't think I have an anti-Manchester United agenda. I certainly wanted West Brom to win because it would have been funny. But I don't. It is complicated. I thought VAR was really good at the 2018 World Cup. I really enjoyed it. I thought I'd hate it. I actually enjoyed it. Now I would just get rid of it, frankly. Like, there are mistakes with it, without it. Just get on with it. That's what I think. But it will probably improve. But it's, we spend so much time talking about that rather than talking about actual players kicking the ball in the right direction,
You know what, just going off that, when I watched it back, I did see a slight touch, but he didn't tick his shin. So it's
are you United fan?
I am.
There you go.
I'm putting a neutral cap on. He did touch it, but he did hit the shin. So I think there was contact there. It should have been given. But
well, interestingly, the contact doesn't have to be a penalty, right? That's not in the. There can be contact without it being a foul. But I just thought there was quite a lot of contact, and I know that his other leg, he sort of threw his other leg down, and I can understand Manchester United fans thinking that, but. If you don't go down, you don't get the penalty. That's sort of what happens. So I thought it was a penalty, but if I'm wrong, it's okay. The world will keep spinning. That's how I see it.
Max, I want to talk about another game. It was the big Jose Mourinho versus Pep Guardiola over the weekend. Spurs, Man City.
Mm-hmm.
Man City losing 2-0, and it seems this year, Man City can't seem to sort of get a holding of the games that are coming. They don't seem to be consistent. There's a lot of teams in the league like that, but it's surprising for Man City because Pep Guardiola's a great manager, one of the best managers in the world. He just he can't seem to get the team playing that he's had for the last couple of years. What's happening there? What do you feel like is going on at Man City at the moment?
I mean, if Pep doesn't know, it's very unlikely that I'll know. But
you're sober and punctual, so you might.
That's true. I mean, Jose will have absolutely loved doing that on Pep, that number on him, and I thought Spurs actually played brilliantly in what they set out to do. I thought Alderweireld and Dyer defended brilliantly. Højbjerg was excellent in front of them. Ndombele and Sissoko as well. Kane, a lot of people have said had a brilliant game, and you need a bit of luck if you're going to be that defensive. They blocked every shot. I think Jesus blocked one that was going in as well, and Rodri had a header that. Either side of Lloris is an equaliser, and that changes the game. But they were a bit flat. I mean, it was weird in that City had all the ball, all the shots, but Spurs' goals seemed very easy to score, and Lloris didn't really make a save of note until the 90th minute. So, look, I still think City will probably come second. I think they've got so many great players, but Leicester turned them over. Spurs did a number of them. Spurs look bizarrely strong at the moment, don't they? As one of the large number of journalists Spurs are my big team who win things. I was devastated when Jose got that job. I really thought football had passed him by. I have been incredibly critical of him for years, and I sort of I've got my apology letter in my drafts, and I'm not quite sending it to him yet. But he's proved me wrong, and I thought they played really, really well. I think it's hard, when you watch that game. I think it's I think what's more interesting is how Spurs, how sort of dogged and disciplined they were, and how he's getting a tune out of, basically playing Son as a sort of second right back for a lot of that game, and the players' willingness to do that for him shows that they really could have a great season. I'm not saying they could win the league. I mean, they could, but it would be unlikely. But fascinating to see that from a Spurs team.
What is your prediction for your sort of top four? Who did you predict?
I went Liverpool, City, Chelsea, Spurs. And I think Chelsea I've been critical of Lampard as well. And actually, it turns out if you get a goalkeeper who knows how to do it and you get a really good centre-back. I don't think Thiago Silva played at the weekend, but I think he's doing a good job. He's obviously been very well funded and he's got a lot of support. And I think, Werner is a wonderful player and is so quick. And I think Hakim Ziyech is my favourite of all the new signings that he's got. But, he's managed to, like players like Kovacic, who I thought would just sort of disappear, has actually sort of been an integral part of that. I think Mason Mount is getting better. So I think Chelsea Spurs next weekend is such an exciting game now. Jose will try and make it unexciting, but it is exciting to think about. So I went for those four, and I think I had Leicester fifth and Wolves sixth. Given how Leicester played yesterday, I might change that, but I'll let you know.
Are you enjoying the season? Because there's obviously been there's been some surprise results. Some teams that you wouldn't expect to be doing well are doing well. I think Southampton is right up in the table. Aston Villa are up there. Are you enjoying the sort of? There's loads of goals. It's a bit of a crazy season. Are you enjoying?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to caveat it without fans. It is sort of. It's just it shows that they really matter. And I play football every Saturday, right? So my routine on a Saturday is going and playing and watching Soccer Saturday in the bar afterwards. And I miss that. But if you go week in, week out, losing that routine is such a huge thing. But yeah, it's. When football when it stopped for 3 months, like for the first month, I was like, actually, it's quite interesting to see what it's like. And, our work changed and that was quite interesting. But I think it's an important distraction for us. I think it seems to be relatively safe that all the protocols and all that. And I quite like the randomness of Villa putting 7 past Liverpool and Spurs winning 6-1 at Old Trafford. And it's sort of calmed down a bit since then. But I think it will change. I think there's an interesting element to which players sort of thrive or find it easier without fans, which players need the fans and which clubs need the fans specifically, and whether that will have any impact. But yeah, no. I mean, it's important that happens. Otherwise, I don't have anything to talk about. So, it's probably from a very selfish point of view, it's probably something I need to happen. Otherwise, I won't have any work, especially now Gaviscon doesn't exist anymore.
Max, what position do you play in?
Well, I was a centre forward for years, and then obviously as I got older, I went back to holding midfield and centre back, and now I've just joined the vets, the over 40s. So I'm now like a young player again. I've gone back up front.
Oh, you've gone up front. So what we could do?
Good touch for a big man.
We should make a highlight reel for you and send it over to all the clubs, because 2020 is a bit crazy. So there's a good chance you might get signed up by a good club.
Well, Kevin Ellison scored the winner for Newport County in League Two, and he's 41. So exactly. There's still time for me.
Talking about centre forwards, I just wanted your opinion on Harry Kane. This season, he's played in a different role. He's not played up top quite a lot. He's played as a number 10 sometimes, but he's producing sort of passes that are phenomenal, 40-yard passes and scoring goals. There's been a lot of them this season. What do you make of his sort of transition? We know he's getting a bit older, but he's not old in that sense. He's in the peak of his sort of career, but he's playing a different type of role, and he seems to be doing great at it.
Yeah, I think he's always had this. He's always sort of dropped. He's sort of the mix of Sheringham and Shearer, I guess. And when you've got such quick players around you, it's what a skill to have. Like, his distribution is really, really good. He's a wonderful player, and I think every season he gets that injury, and then he comes back and he doesn't look quite as sharp, and everybody goes, "Oh, is this it?" But he's proved us wrong again and again. And his goal scoring is incredible. He played so well against City, and he's a really intelligent footballer. And I think England are very, very lucky to have him.
Just before we finish, I just want to ask, because we ask all the sort of journalists and media, who is the greatest player that you've ever seen play live?
If I can't have Michael Cheetham, a flying right winger for Cambridge United in the late 80s, early 90s, or of course John Taylor or Dion Dublin or Steve Claridge. The best player I've ever seen live. I mean, I have seen Ronaldo live, but it's a really good question. The greatest moment if it springs to mind, is I was in Kiev for the Champions League final when Bale scored that overhead kick. And it's very rare. He may not be the greatest player I've seen live, but it's very rare that someone scores a goal like that and there is like an audible silence before everyone realises what's happened. And that springs to mind. That is the one moment where everyone around me, like, and you're sitting with all these journalists who watch football matches, you know, so many games every week. They're all sort of battle hardened to football. It's like a chore for them. And everyone was like, wow, that is we were lucky to witness that moment. But most of the time I've been watching League Two, so, you know, it's not really a comparison.
Chris, Ronaldo will be joining you in the vet soon. He's 35. He'll be up there.
Yeah, I could give him 45, but I couldn't guarantee him to start for him.
Max, just before we let you go, I just want to talk to you about Marcus Rashford and what he's doing outside football. We know that he's basically just taken on the Tories. He's got a decision U-turnn, and he seems to be helping a lot of school kids out there. And what do you make of him? Because he's a young guy. He's using his platform to the ultimate, but making a difference to people's lives.
Yeah, and now he's like writing a kid's book. Is there nothing this man can't do? He's been a real inspiration, hasn't he? And I think what's so great about what he's done is he's been apolitical. You know, he is not there trying to hammer the government. He has made them U-turn a couple of times. They won't like that, and and that's a shame. But he is not. His stance is not a political one. It's just a really basic. He has life experience that I don't have. I can't imagine, you know, getting home from school and there being no food for dinner, right? It's just not that. I was so lucky like that, and most of us probably are. But, you know, he's using his position for such good, and he's doing it in such a sort of inclusive way that I just think it's incredibly. You just so much respect for him. And I think what I was doing at that age, which was just, you know, being bad at football and sort of eating too many kebabs, to have that social conscience, to do it in the right way, and like for anyone to sort of try and find criticism in him is just so churlish, because it's such an obvious message. And you know, I don't think anybody wants to see kids go hungry, but I think a lot of us put our head in the sand a lot of the time, or we don't spend time thinking about, you know, the impact it would have on you to not have a good breakfast before you go to school or dinner after school is like, it's huge, right? And for him to do that and do it so well, I can only commend him and hope that people follow. You know, it doesn't have to be exactly the same way, but just say, oh, look, here's someone doing a good thing. What can I do that's good? How can I volunteer? What charities can I support? All those kind of things. He is he should be very proud of himself.
Max, thank you so much for joining us. I know you're in a rush. You're heading off to do some presenting on TalkSport now.
Yeah, thanks so much. I enjoyed it, and
thank you.
We're going to actually title this with Max Rushden, Sober and Punctual.
Perfect.
That's will be the title.
Yeah, absolutely right. Who's on next? Who's the exciting one?
It is Danny Mills.
Okay. Oh, come on. You're not saying he's more exciting than me. Are you serious?
No, of course he's not.
You know what,
Danny Mills?
Danny Mills has actually done the most numbers on our
Yeah, he has actually.
Of course he has. No, I like Danny. He's good. Send him my love.
Cool.
We will.
Take care. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
See you soon. Bye. Great to be joined by Max there, talking all things the league at the moment, the season so far, all the crazy results we've had, and now he's shooting off to do some more talk sport. But next up, stay tuned. We have Danny Mills joining us. We have had him on the show before, so stay tuned. We'll see you soon.